All right, call the select board meeting to order. First up is public comment. This is comment for anything that's not on the agenda. Seeing nobody coming off mute and nobody raising their hand, we'll keep moving. Approval of the agenda. We have one correction of removing item H.
Motion to approve with the removal of item H.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar. Meeting minutes and warrants.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Appointments to boards, committees, and commissions.
So two in the packet, maybe we'll do the Kimball trustee first. I see that Morgan Egan is online.
Hi there.
And with the DRB appointment, I know one candidate came in through office. There were a couple others that have come in through the DRB planning commission process. There's some other candidates there, so we'll be doing appointments on the 13th. So it's up to you how you wanna handle one now,
Well,
do them all later.
let's
with
move
that
to
one.
the library one.
But we have,
And
yeah.
the DRB, we don't have them all.
okay.
Anybody have any questions for Morgan? So, do you want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Point, yeah.
Morgan Eaton, Humboldt Library Board of Trustees. A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, there you go, Morgan. Sorry to put you through all that.
No worries. Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Be rugged. Assembly permit for the Safe and Scene Halloween event. We have a couple issues on this one. That Scott wanted to make sure that we didn't have kids controlling the crosswalks.
We will be pairing an adult with any students that are participating, so that there will be an adult paired with the students.
Each crosswalk.
Mhm.
And then, he's concerned that you're not having law enforcement on site or blue lights with the amount of people going back and forth across.
We
Main
did
Street.
agree to have them,
Yeah, that's been an update.
yes. It was updated to,
When'd you speak to him?
I spoke to him last
Thursday?
Friday.
Friday?
I
Last,
spoke with him a couple hours ago and he said you hadn't.
I
So
saw
just-
it.
Yeah.
If I may, just in the application under my section, we did add the officer and cruiser into that agreed with conditions.
I'm sorry, the part about the police being present, we can get updated on the application.
Right. Did it go to the fire department?
It did, and Andy emailed back, I believe, saying that he approved.
He did. He emailed me as well.
Okay. They got a little uptight last year.
I forgot about that, but yeah, they did a little bit.
They weren't consulted. That's all I had. Anybody else have any questions on this one? Not, take motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the application for the grant, for the rec department to, as part of the trail.
Yep, this would be some accessibility path additions and upgrades. The way this was written up would allow for what we've thought of as both phase 1 and phase 2. So this would cover from one side to the other. There'd be a loop around the ball field and there'd be some improvements in some other places. If we needed to, we could scale it back to what would be phase 1, which would look from the School Street side, parking lot, I think some upgrades. Kind of continue to over to the bridge. We're gonna try to do the bridge flanking regardless, that'll be essentially phase one. And then if obviously we do 1 and 2, we'll do that as well. Match comes from the recreation reserve. It has more than enough for either scenario. And then there's a capital transfer to go in sort of later, so this doesn't disrupt anything or supplant any other plans to the extent that we have any for any of the structures or anything like that, so.
Cool.
This is a project that came to us from a resident who's at ELS, I believe, and so it's a service project, so it's got a nice component to it too there. Want to make sure that we give Whitney some flowers here since she brought it to Milo and through there and.
Any questions on this one? None, motion to apply.
So moved.
Those in favor? Aye. Those. Motion carries. Yep, rules it. Listers procurement for a statistical reappraisal.
Me and Dennis are here and walk you through all of the data deep dive here and
So I'm
projection
sure,
methods and all of it.
I'm sure you didn't think we'd be talking about the reappraisal so soon after we just got through our twenty
I'm not sure
twenty-four
everybody's
reappraisal.
happy about the last one, so I can't believe you popped your head out of the hole.
Broad shoulders. So after our last reappraisal or during our reappraisal, one of the things that our office wanted to make sure of was that we didn't go another 16 years or 18 years before a reappraisal, or 14 or 15 before we did an RFP. So we, at that point, thought it would make sense for us if we were to do a statistical reappraisal in 5 years. The state allows a statistical if you do it in 5 years. If you go 6 or more, then you have to do a full town appraisal, reappraisal. The statistical, they come in and look at sales for the previous 3 years or so. Difference is they don't go into every single house because our data is fairly recent, and as long as our office maintains it, there's no reason to go in, but they would look at sales and come up with new values and new, basically software, background software that would help price things accordingly to the market at that time. So it's a less of a job than the full reappraisal. The reason we're here now is because although we were thinking about doing this, there's new legislation, Act 73.
Dennis, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wondered, but before you move into this next piece, the statistical appraisal, it sounds like it's gonna update our values so that we're not as reliant on the CLA to have similar values to what's happening statewide, is that?
It's just to bring our brand list where it should be.
And
Keep the equity, because the CLA applies to everyone, whether they deserve it or not. And a statistical is like equitable among.
how does, that was the next part of my question, so how does that work?
Well, so there's two things. Actually, the CLA isn't as important anymore as the COD, the coefficient of dispersion, because that's where equity is based, right? And that's all good for the education portion. But if we don't keep our grand list up to snuff, it's also gonna hurt us and our municipal budget. So we think there's value in making sure that all your values are in place every 5 years. You know, the better product you have, the better.
So does this account for how individual properties might change in value over time, not just the whole market?
Exactly right.
But they're not visiting.
They're not
homes.
visiting every house.
So how do you get that information that's gonna,
It's based on sales. So the way, computer assisted mass appraisal works, right, is they build the back end of the system with values per square foot. Then it's all adjusted by quality and condition. What it would be doing is revamping the square foot cost. Cause right now we're seeing sales that exceed our 2024 reappraisal by sometimes 10%. So we're concerned what's gonna happen in 5 years. And so what it would do is to basically build the building blocks to base all of our new values on. Just like they did this last time, but this last time they built new values.
so,
that
okay,
were
so,
16 years.
tell me if I'm understanding you correctly or not. So what I think you're saying is that the various parameters that you use to come up with a value based upon certain things that we can measure, like square footage, quality, other things which are easily quantifiable, that those change in relation to each other over time, so we
Yes.
adjust those values
Exactly.
Exactly.
as well. So two homes which may have had the same value last year, in 5 years, when we do a statistical reappraisal, they might, even if nobody's done anything to them, they might actually change their values in relation to each other somewhat because of the way the parameters that calculate the value
It's
have changed over time. Is that-
possible. There wouldn't be a big difference if there's no changes in either one,
Yeah.
right? The big thing is like looking at neighborhoods, locations, trying to figure out if the neighborhood pricing is the same. And looking
Okay.
at sales for 3, maybe back to 5 years, depending on what's available for sales. And trying to figure out the per price square foot that the market is bearing at that.
I see. And part of that is so like different neighborhoods might become more or less valuable
They could,
compared to
exactly.
other ones over time.
could.
That'll be factored into this as
Yeah,
well.
all based on sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the difference with the CLA as it applies to the education grant, the education grant list, is like what the state does is like, we'll be looking at different variables and judging each house accordingly. Cause some properties are gonna go up in value, some will go down in value. The CLA on the education side says everybody gets this put on top of them, right? They'll take the CLA and apply it to everybody. And not just the ones that need it, and that's where like the equity doesn't like come into play.
Mhm.
So like if someone did improvements, they'll have the CLA applied to them and maybe they need that. But if other people's have gone down in value, they're still gonna have that CLA applied to them and change the value. And it might not apply to them. That makes sense, to you guys.
Yeah, although there does seem to be quite a bit of nuance here, which maybe we don't need to discuss here, but I would love
Yeah,
to,
you
I'll
can
check in
make an
sometime. I
appointment.
will talk, I'm sure we will chat sometime soon. Thank you.
Yeah. All of you are welcome to ever make an appointment. And talk to us about any of this. Anytime.
So really the big driver is Act 73. Act 73 is some of an education bill that has components in it that have to deal with property valuation. And one of the things in the bill, that what the bill did was to create RADs or reappraisal districts. We don't know what they are yet. Maybe they're gonna be by county, maybe they're gonna be by a supervisory union or school districts. We're not sure. There's working groups that are trying to hammer all this stuff out. What the bill also says is that each town has to do a reappraisal every 6 years. So our fear was and it's gonna take effect starting 2030, with RADs in the 6-year appraisal cycle. So our fear was if we get to 2029 or 2030, and then we're put on a schedule where we're 6 years out, we're gonna be back to being 12 years between reappraisals. And that wasn't from the last time. It worked, we got through it, but there was a lot of shock from residents until we explained how it all worked out. We're trying to avoid that and make sure that our data stays current every 5 or 6 years. So with that, one of the issues has become that there are 39 towns, I think right now, that are non-compliant. They've been giving orders to reappraise by the state. They can't find a company to work for them. There's numerous issues trying to find enough appraisers to work. We're in a position where the company that did our reappraisal in 2024 is happy to come back and work for us. We had talked about it when we had been doing the work a year ago, and they've kind of penciled this in to help us out. Yesterday, we were at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns town fair, and the director of PBI was there and said there's a lot of people looking for appraisals and just getting turned down, or they're getting contracts for 2030, 2031 or beyond. So we just want to be in a position to get the work done, keep our values current. So that leads us to a request to you folks to consider sole source procurement for this. When we went out to bid for our 2024 reappraisal, we ended up getting 3 companies to bid. It was actually the second RFP we put out because we were asking for it to be done in 2023. We had to go back out to bid for 2024. We got 3 people to bid. The company we chose for a lot of reasons, not only the price, but because we did a software conversion. We changed our camera product to something that we think is far superior. Helps us keep records a lot better. So we were inclined to wanna probably have the same company do this work for us. They, for a while, had the exclusive rights to the camera software that we're using. Company's been sold since, so other reappraisal companies could use this software and help us out. But these guys are kind of the experts. It's New England Municipal Consulting. And right now they're bidding out into 2030 and beyond as well. So we feel fortunate they're willing to help us out in 2020. The sole source procurement policy and your purchasing policy, the sole source procurement part has 5 criteria, have to meet at least 2 or 3. So we've laid out an argument in a packet that we provided where we think that we need at least 3 of those, possibly all 5. We're happy to answer any questions about that aspect. And then the last piece I would add is the last page of the packet that we shared with you is kind of funding mechanism to how we get enough cash to pay for this. Our last appraisal was in excess of $200,000. It was 208 for their contract. If we did it today, we'd be looking at probably 240. We're looking at something substantially south of that. We're hoping 150 or 60 range. But what we've laid out is how we would have to increase the budget for our reappraisal reserve fund over the next 4 or 5 years to make sure we get to where we need to be. And then a level that we would then sustain in case we end up paying for another reappraisal in 6 years by the new statute, new laws. So it's a lot to digest. I get it, but we're happy to try to answer any questions.
You said 50 to 60,000 for the statistical update.
50 to 160.
Very good, 50. A lot to do a sole source.
Yeah, what, so I understand most people are looking out 5 years or more, but what does it hurt to just do a simplified bid or a?
We could, what we don't want to do is to lose our spot. I mean, so if we went out to bid and we can't get anybody for 2029, we're gonna look at putting it out to bid again. When we do that, we may end up in 2031, 32, where some of them are now. That's 8 years out at least.
So you don't think they would,
So,
they would put in a bid?
not sure, the last time we didn't have much luck looking for 3.
But the company that's got you penciled in wouldn't respond to a bid.
They would respond to an RFP. I think it's probably not gonna change
I think that's what Liz is saying, is instead of going
Yeah.
sole source, why not just bid it, knowing they would respond?
It's just cleaner for.
You put your dates and everything you want and what you want met, and they've already. Clean usually, just don't let them write the RFP for you. It's a big no.
And we've got our arguments.
You have questions from the board? Don, your hand goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down.
Yeah, it's up. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around an earlier part. If, say, a preponderance of the house sales were in the $100,000 range, and they went up 20% on average, what would the effect be on $500,000 homes? Would they also go up 20% on this new valuation, or how is that somehow?
So that's what we don't have an answer. That's why we do the reappraisal. Exactly why we do the reappraisal. They're gonna look at every sale for at least 3 years, probably a little bit longer, and try to determine that. I mean, houses right now, just following the market that we do, houses over 500,000, if they're stagnant, they're not moving on the market like 200 to 350,000 house. There's a lot more activity in that range. Things over 5. There's an abundance of them on the market right now in Randolph. Longer days on market, starting to see price reductions. So there's not really a clear answer, the correlation between $100,000 or $200,000 house and a $500,000 house.
Okay.
It's on the opposite side, like if the, you know, the market's been climbing, but if the market declines, whatever the market does goes up and down.
Sure.
The main thing is equity. It's equity in the grand list. And we need to follow whatever the market's doing. So if it lowers the grand list and it's equitable, that's what happens. If the things go up and it's equitable, that's what happens. And that's the part of like following the market.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if there was an algorithm to account for that disparity if it did exist. And it doesn't sound like there is.
No, it sounds like even location, huh, right?
Mhm.
What neighborhood you're in, what you're, like, there's a lot of other
Yeah,
variables too,
yeah.
so it's not just fucking any two house.
Exactly.
Could it be a hybrid approach a little bit where they contact the other two respondents? Since we've competitively did it in some sense twice, they contact the other two, say this is the
That's
scope.
what a simplified bid is at the state.
Is that what you,
police.
yeah,
You just have
Okay.
to contact three, so you already have three. You
So that-
send out the specs and then.
shortens it so we're not doing
They
bid
just send a
advertised.
scope to the three and
Okay.
see what they say. But check our procurement and make sure in the simplified bid, if it's 150,000, that we're not out of the range of it.
The states just went up, so. we might-
We might need to do ours. You may wanna wait.
Right. I mean, I would have anybody bidding on anything, at least it's not construction. It's- And it's, yeah, anyway. Simplified bid, scope to three is what you're saying?
We need to make a motion on that, or we approve it when it comes back in, right?
You could approve it when it comes back, yeah. Do it up first. That doesn't very too often. I mean, you could do a contingent motion that it. It's a big enough amount of money where maybe if they do simplified bid, we come back.
You're coming back.
So is it any three or the same three? Cause one of the three doesn't work with our software. To be transparent.
Any three.
Anything else? Questions?
Thank you, very good.
Thanks for your.
Well, yeah.
We'll be back.
I'll
Everyone.
follow up on the flash beacon crosswalk signs.
Said we'd come back to this topic and we are back. I don't think there's anything new to add. It's decision point is probably where we're at. There was an extension to the grant. I think we passed that along last time, or it was passed along
To June,
I believe.
it's June 15th. And then, the intent on that is that the town would would bid this and be responsible for the construction and oversight, right?
Yeah, we talked about if you do, but accept the grant to go back to sort of how it was framed originally. That for that piece for the flashing beacon, we're gonna put it in, be the owner, or we're gonna be the owner and be responsible to move around it, for winter maintenance. Have us put it in, and the grant would pay for that.
We
whether
we don't accept the grant, right? The walk bike group accepted the grant already,
Right,
because they already got the money for it. So there's no grant for us to accept. The
Right.
question is whether the town is
gonna install,
willing
yeah.
to bid it and do the installation of it.
Yeah, they're just trying
And
to go
then
back to
own it
how
when
we
it's done.
entered, basically, yeah.
So the plan right now, the town would bid it, install it, and then invoice the walk bike Randolph group for that sign.
Is that money then, it's actually being awarded to our ACDC, right?
You already have the money.
Yeah, our ICDC is our, is the fiscal agent for the grant. So they have it already.
What happens if there's a change in fiscal agent? Is that the question you're looking at? Yeah. Or do we not know? It's not a bridge we have to cross now, but it is one we may need to.
Not anytime soon.
mean, I don't know.
So what you're looking for authority for is for the town to bid this crosswalk sign, install it, and then invoice walk like Randolph or the,
Yeah,
Pay
maybe
for it.
that's how you wanna do it, so.
So if that bid comes back and they need a lot more money than what the grant is, then we would decide at that
Yes,
point,
ma'am.
there would be a decision point later on. Like if they come back and say it's me 30,000, I only have 15, or more, then we would make a different decision. Okay, sure.
right now, it's just for us to bid it and then install
Okay.
it, but we'll have to accept the bid,
Right,
so we'll have another crack at it.
okay. So we need a motion to place the bid. So moved.
Close. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consider the walk bike master plan draft.
This is another, we said we'd be here with the draft at least. It's up on the website, there's contact info for where to submit feedback, we've got some already. The plan remains the same, that we collect feedback, get together with Rita from Two Rivers. And at some point, probably, we're gonna aim for the November meeting, come back with a final draft, or at least sort of a formal presentation draft. And then you can either accept that or see additional amendments. And we'll package all the feedback with it, so you get everything. So you can see what went in, what people said, what's important, what isn't. But this is really just to make sure we had a sort of a formal introduction. Is there anything anybody wants to review, any questions, any feedback now? I mean, you can read it later and submit that. Like I said, there's the two email points on the website, adminassist@randolphvt.org. It's one that goes through Judy into our office, then I think it's Mark is the other one at randolphvt.org as well. And so he's been working on pieces of this on and off and some of the bike fed stuff. Jeff was sort of the point person on grants and other projects that were bike and pedestrian oriented, and as he shuffled off to the west coast, Mark has sort of slid over and taken some of that on.
So comments, are we putting a timeline on those?
In terms of the comment, I mean, we don't have one up, I don't believe right now that we'll accept them, but we may want to. Well, we may want to do one more sort of front porch forum. Push, see if
And all
others can
those
push it.
comments are
Yeah.
going to the RPC,
They're coming to us, and then we'll make sure Rita hits them as well, yeah.
and then a new draft comes out.
Yep, then we'll go through the feedback, go through the plan, make sure that others have seen it at a staff level, Sean and the highway crew, for example, since they'll have to maintain anything we put in. And then bring you a more formal version of it, with a formal presentation, probably. I think the 13th would be the goal of November. And then the timing is good because it hits us on the front end of the budget cycle too, so if there's anything wrong. Thinking over 27, we've got time.
So people who want to supply or submit comments should have them into the town by November 13th, or you want to have it?
Earlier would be better, yeah, we may want to do another push and then put that deadline at, I gotta look at a calendar, I can't visualize time and space, by Halloween maybe. Doesn't mean we wouldn't accept something after that, but that gives us a little bit of time to collate and digest, and I think that'll allow because you remember, we also have the sidewalk scoping study kind of active on a parallel track, so it's looking at the 3 new or extended sidewalk segments, so that'll be a little further along, so now we have a pretty good idea where that is and all that. So that's out there as well. And ties into some of these, like when you look at the sidewalk inventory, you can see where those pieces are.
I know it would be magic if the timing worked out, but since if the sidewalk crossing happens and it's one of the four that were in the scoping study, can that money be used as a match for the rest of the sidewalk? Scopes, like, project.
We'd have to look at the grant and see. If it, because sometimes they put language in there that says it can't be,
Yeah.
but if the language isn't in there, yeah. Good.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
Conversation, the questions around whether the grant to install this flashing light, if it's not federal funds. And it doesn't have any restrictive language in the grant agreement itself, can it be used as match towards other sidewalk projects?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Yep.
Since there were some in the scoping study, so if we did apply for a 2080 grant.
Show it.
I wouldn't have thought you could use a grant to,
No.
as match.
You
for
can, as
another-
long as it's not, if it doesn't have language in there prohibiting it, and it's not federal funds, then you can.
It's not your.
I would think that the restriction would come.
It didn't go to the town. It didn't go to the town.
It doesn't have to.
It's not your money. I'm pretty sure that grant does not allow it to be used as a match, but.
So you have to have that specific language in there.
I don't think. It's specific.
Yeah, you can.
So we would own the infrastructure and yet the town's infrastructure.
You could do it as an in-kind. It could be a gifted asset that you're using as a match tree.
Anyway, something we'll
yeah,
add.
interesting. It's a
See about
future
15,000.
conversation to have recipients and those.
All right.
So we've gotten, like I said, we got some feedback already. I think Walk Bike Roll submitted some stuff last week, maybe they came in, so we've got that in there and.
All right. So next up on the agenda, we have the request to rename a private road. There's more information in the packet. We have come in with second. Name. Which is Sandy Oak or Sand Oak Drive. There's also a Sand Fox Drive, but. Anybody have any questions on that one?
I do have one question. So with this, is this gonna cost the town anything to like do any paperwork or anything like that?
I believe in here, in one of the submissions, Scott was offering to buy the sign.
Right.
And then I think Judy does some work on the E911 board site, right, to change the name.
Is that pretty complicated or is it?
So no. Have questions, any motions?
It's a private drive, so the process is a little different. There are some process questions, public hearings. Doesn't mean you couldn't do one, but it's renaming a public street, so it's statutes envision. So,
So we don't have to do anything else?
not that I saw, but once again, you have taken me to new territory, so.
Our pleasure.
Training. Hit the ground training. And will this affect, there is one property there that's under contract, or is that? Would that mess up any paperwork for that transaction to go through?
No, I think it's actually, and there is Pleasant Street,
Okay,
so I didn't even get the current name on the paperwork,
awesome.
but
Okay,
it won't change anything with that.
okay.
Questions, motions?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the change of name from Sherman Lane to Sandhill Drive.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Follow up on the KPL grant and easement, the Tupelo project.
Yep, in August, you had essentially voted to approve or accept the grant, with the caveat that there'd be a side agreement that goes with it that spelled out capital prioritization, essentially town control of which capital projects happen when. So those pieces, they thematically fit with all the feedback we've provided over the months, if not years, been going on for a little bit. We've been trying to make some of these modifications or see if they could be made. Heard back from the granting entities, this would be VHCB and Preservation Trust. Track times late last week, early this week. That they weren't interested in considering a side agreement. I had drafted something up, put the language in there. I did it in MOU format, just because that's a familiar one for us. But when I passed along, I said, this is a vehicle. If you got a better one, different language that does the same thing, let us know. We didn't get anything in return as a product, or if we did it this way with this, they just thought that it wouldn't meet the stewardship goals and effectively declined to consider it beyond that. So that renders me unable to sign anything because your motion was contingent upon the side agreement. So we return here. For you to make a choice on what happens next with this particular grant. I laid out just a handful of options. You might have other ones, but the same set we've been circling for a while in terms of everything from, they keep trying for modifications. You accept it as is with there were some changes made to the grant agreement after one of the rounds. They didn't necessarily address these pieces about capital prioritization and planning. But they did address some of the concerns throughout the way. You could decline to accept it. You could come up with a hybrid other option. It could be something we haven't hit on yet. Let's really trying to figure out what do you want to do from here.
It was even the day when we met with them, they talked about, that they would be open to a side agreement that laid out the process that where the work that the library fell in with all the rest of the buildings and the capital planning process. I'm curious as to what changed that on their part, and then just coming back and saying, not at this time, doesn't give us that path forward.
And it did come with it. We understand and appreciate the town has a responsibility. The intent of the historic preservation easement, they felt that the side agreement could run counter to the intent of that easement, which requires owners to maintain their building, is essentially passed along.
Hi, my name is Amy Grasnick. I'm the director of Kimball Library. In July, the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board provided a revised historic preservation easement for the town to consider that addressed the stated concerns about dispute resolution. And in this revised preservation easement, they intentionally used language from an agreement that the town has already signed with another building. So the language aligns with an agreement that the town's already made with the Preservation Trust. I have not seen the MOU, nor has the library board seen the MOU.
It's not
That
your
was
project
sent
at that point.
to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, so we are ignorant about what additional concerns there are that beyond what has been said in previous select board meetings. In previous select board meetings, the things that rise to the top of my memory are worries that VHCD is going to come in and require the select board to prioritize one project over another in the capital in capital funding. And I'm still mystified about what there is in the historic preservation easement that raises this concern. So I would love to hear from any select board member who is worried about this. Where do you see this in the easement?
We
What
did
is
this
the
last time, Amy.
language?
We went through the language and we pointed it out to VHCD even agrees with us. that they
I
have that.
agree with that,
Well,
absolutely.
that's what came out of the meeting we had with them, and that's why they agreed to do the side agreement.
There was never an agreement to do a side agreement that I remember. They agreed to look at the historic preservation easement and they offered a revised version to the town that the town has signed and has agreed to this language in the past. So,
But you're right, that's over dispute resolution.
yes, exactly.
That's a
Dispute
different
resolution.
topic, and that's one of the topics they fixed.
But
in
the
the
dispute
agreement.
resolution process provides you with an opportunity, if you feel that VHCD is overstepping their authority, to say, no, we disagree with what you were asking us to do. And then there's a process for you to come to an agreement.
But if
That's
the
whole
language
thing
is in
that's
there,
right.
the language is
dispute
in there allowing them. The concern is the town has 10 different buildings that need work on them.
Yes,
And we say the library is number 10.
okay,
And the library trustees and DHCB decide they don't like that.
okay.
This agreement would allow you to bump the other pieces. It required. Us
Show
to,
that to me in here. That
we
they are-
did right here last time. I'm
No,
not
you did
going through this.
No, you did not.
We
And
did.
so if we did it last time, I want you to do it again.
Okay, but I'm not
If you
doing it
just-
tonight.
If you disagree with the prioritization that VHCB places before you, you have a dispute resolution process in the easement to discuss it and come up with a resolution. So I understand that I'm pressing you to point me to the language that is causing you such concern. Because I've yet to hear where this language is. I don't see any evidence in court cases. Vermont Housing and Conservation Board has had no court cases around historic preservation easements at all. So this tells me that they are not interested in strong arming towns into doing things they don't want to do. So I just want the
And we
evidence.
asked them for the side agreement to lay out that the library would go through a capital planning process, the same as the rest of the buildings, and that's what they won't sign.
I haven't seen that MOU. I am completely ignorant of what it is that you
Yeah.
presented to the HCD, so I can't address that.
That's what we presented to them.
Well,
We haven't seen it.
Well, it was a town agreement with the DHCD, but
and the library, elected library board is responsible for the library building. And to have them shut out of this conversation is really counterproductive.
MOUs in the packet.
I'm a little confused because I thought that the reason why there was concern around this particular grant was because of the in perpetuity nature of the grant, not because of other parts of it, because I think as we just heard, that other parts of it, that maybe we have concerns, that we've overlooked those concerns in the past, and we've signed those agreements anyway, because they weren't in perpetuity. And so it seems like we're still at that point where it's really a matter of, if we accept this money, we're binding the town to the agreement forever-ish. And I guess that still seems to me to be the crux of the matter, and it seems like, yeah, if VHCB, if these granting agencies will typically fund these projects with those sorts of stipulations in place for projects, for 10-year periods or 15 or 20, that it doesn't seems reasonable that they would want to be consistent and include those sorts of, stipulations in all their agreements. And so it seems like, I'm not super surprised that they aren't willing to bend a whole lot on the agreement, because this is their standard operating procedure that they've done in, lots of different cases. And again, it just brings, in my mind, us back to, I think, which is what has been worrisome to some folks, is the fact that this agreement will bind us for a longer period of time. And I felt this way when we first had these conversations, and I really feel similarly that it's a lot of money that they're willing to give us. It's a lot of money that we would have to come up with otherwise through taxpayer funds if we don't accept the agreement. It's money that we won't be able to use for other projects if we use that money out of our own bank accounts for this. The idea that in some period of time, decades from now, that the town could have a problem with the granting organization in terms of, these ways that have been discussed is a valid concern, and it's certainly it's a possibility. I think we just really need to weigh it against our present needs and our present fiscal environment. And I think when we do that, at least in my mind, I feel pretty clear that yes, we'd be taking on a certain amount of risk and accepting that money. But I think that would be worth it to accept the money and just assume sort of / hope for, the normal outcome, which is that, it all works out just fine. So I would really hope that we can find a way to, take the money, move on with this project, fix this wonderful building, which which is an incredible asset for our community, and get these repairs taken care of.
So we're gonna start before the capital project happens? Don't you need $400,000 more dollars?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
So if we sign this, you still need to do a capital project, correct?
That's correct.
So are you working on that now?
The library board and the Friends of Kimball Library, which is an independent 501c3, met last night. The Friends of the Library agreed to establish a capital campaign committee. So yes, we've taken the first step in setting up that structure to raise the money to close the gap.
I have a question, yes. About the building itself and it being a municipal building. It's something I've never quite understood. Is it a different kind of building than the town hall and other buildings that the town owns in terms of the requirement to maintain them?
So, I think you're hearing me say it's the Kimball
I know.
board is in charge of it. But it's similar to, we own Chandler, right? But Chandler, there's an agreement there, certain things Chandler does, certain things the town does. I don't know that there's any formal agreement with the library, it's more of a past practice. When projects come up.
Cause how long have we been trying to get the cupola repaired?
We've known it's been leaking since 2015.
Yeah. I thought so. And it's not getting better. No, of course not.
And it's like spies of it.
Yeah.
I would much rather see us go back and meet them again, talk about this process for how things are controlled. That makes me nervous about food. I think just an email saying, when we met with them in person, we made a lot of progress with them. Maybe that's a wording thing. But we have time, right? So gonna raise 400,000 more to be able to do the project.
Would they do that without the backing of the select board in advance?
Will they do what?
Would the library crew go through the trouble of trying to raise monies if they don't have the support of the town?
The town's already put some cash from the town in too. The town has money,
But the town has to accept this grant.
understood.
And if it doesn't
There's like
happen,
4
can
grants
they close that?
and we've accepted 3 and put money in. There's the other 400,000 still needs raised.
Mhm.
So the time, it's just like, can we figure out some paperwork while you're raising money so that it can happen successfully when all the money equals 100% of the cost of the project?
Can we get time with those folks? And maybe Larry will join the meeting. Then you can hear it too.
I could do it too, happy to.
Why does this keep getting kicked down the road?
It's not getting kicked down the road.
It's been 10 years.
It hasn't been 10 years that we've been dealing with this grant.
It's been 10 years that you've been trying to get funds for the people. Why don't you just go ahead? Amy has gotten 3, 4 now grants to repair the cupola and still.
I don't think it seems like we're gonna say no forever. We just, before we sign something, we wanna make sure there's no option to do the SAG agreement that we want to do, since it is
Does
a
everyone feel that way?
perpetual agreement.
It sounds like we're at a point now where this grant, this money will still be available to us for some period of time. We're not risking losing the funding if we wait another month.
Not that they told us.
And a lot of money still needs to be raised, it's gonna take some time. So, as much as I would like to see us not talk about this anymore, I'd be willing to engage in a conversation and hear from them and come back next month and see where we're at.
Is there a reason why a representative from the library board or me as the library director cannot be in the room for this conversation? Is there a reason why we should not be in the know and understanding?
That would seem to be appropriate to have someone from the library to be part of the conversation and certainly making things easier during our next meeting when we go to talk about it. We'll first-hand information about what was discussed.
Well, she had firsthand information about what was discussed before, and yet that's been contradicted. But that's when.
Okay, so we'll get a meeting set up. We'll get them to the table. And we'll have that conversation. You guys are moving forward with the fundraiser. And hopefully by next month or shortly thereafter, we'll have an answer from PHCB. All right,
I want to just clarify that library representatives will be included in that conversation, correct?
yes,
Thank you.
in the conversation. Consider a draft of an amended false alarm ordinance. It's for all the fire department. Highlights,
Pretty much, yeah.
nothing.
There's been a significant increase in false alarm callouts, particularly with the hotel open. So Randolph Center in particular has been called out quite a bit, but it happens to all 3 departments, occasionally to others, so through fire services advisory and staff work. Got the proposed amendments in the packet there, they're the sections highlighted in yellow. And sort of specifies how we can maybe intervene in an earlier part, to try to get some kind of action taken, and so every time somebody burns toast at the hotel, we get,
Some of the time they're smoking in the room or vaping.
Oh, wow.
it's not just the hotel, but that's
Yeah, they're going
the marked increase as the
two
side,
or three times a week.
yeah.
Well, they're elsewhere too. That's the big culprit. for
What's
sure,
that?
but we've had other ones too. VTC does frequent flyer for a while. Randolph Center gets a lot of them. Anybody have any questions on these? Is this, oh, it's an ordinance.
So we would have to have, there's a table that shows you a little bit what it would look like. We warned the public hearing for the 13th, say that you wanted to go ahead with it. Everything else kind of follows after that. So ordinances are usually about 60 days from the public hearing date, assuming you act to adopt the same day that you have the hearing date. That's sort of the key pieces. Everything else works backwards from. The tracking table, which part that's cut off, but you don't see is that there is an appeal, populates the rest of it. But you only fill that section out if somebody appealed with ordinances, they have 44 days after the date of adoption. It's different than, say, a zoning ordinance adoption.
Okay,
Where, I'd love, it was, give us sort of a sense of where all the language came from, its origin, or how the process that we used to come up with this.
From Fire Service Advisory Committee, from other false alarm ordinances, I think in other communities. We did a lot of the assembly, so I.
The majority of it, Cliff had written years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they've discussed this at fire advisory several years ago, and Cliff had come up with a draft and. They met and tweaked it a little bit, but the most of it's from Cliff.
Oh, wow.
It was on track and they had a dispute over a purchase order.
I was just gonna ask what happened. I knew it was
That's not
Jamie.
really- that's not really what happened, I'm just being a wise.
And has this language been sort of vetted through our attorney?
I don't believe it's gone to Mike Terry yet, no. But it can.
Wouldn't we normally do that?
Yeah, we could before the public hearing. There's nothing that says you have to adopt it when the hearing closes. The table just fills it out as a first presumption. You could have a public hearing, Mike could do his review, and then you could adopt it in December and just move the effective date out.
Should we have him review it before the public hearing too?
You
And
can
then,
try.
and if there's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if
Yeah.
there's something significant, we can move back the public hearing.
Or
Right.
you might just have the hearing on the draft as it is, and then you incorporate whatever you get back from the attorney, if you get something back, and where you hear for feedback or any other changes you come up with. And we would adopt, sort of an amended version, and we'd warn that for hearing. That's just sort of,
So we'd have to have a second hearing.
you would
right?
reset it, yeah,
Okay.
because you'd have an amended ordinance, so you want
unless it's minor, right?
Right,
You
yeah.
can make minor
Spelling,
changes
yeah.
without.
Right. Okay.
if we spell fire with a PH and you want to change it back to an F, then that would be minor.
And playing with that. Got at least something for future select boards to fix, you know?
That's right.
Do you need a motion to? warn this
Nope.
For hearing?
Actually, yeah, I wouldn't be bad from a process standpoint, if you want a motion to warn a public hearing for November 13th, we'll start that meeting off with the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a certain item on the agenda you wanted? Before we go into executive session?
I check everything out, but I'll get down for you.
Fine, I just didn't wanna
Oh,
leave you standing.
This is fan,
you know?
we're fan guys. Leadership.
Nothing else to do Thursday.
Wedding craft experience.
Here.
Thanks for stopping by.
Wow. So we need a motion to find that we need to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a motion to go into executive session for personnel appointment evaluation.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right, everybody, what's your cue to go on anybody? Executive sessions, all the meetings left for.
We're done.